My name is Elias Granger, and I'm 55. For the past 18 years, I've run Granger Digital Security, the company my father built from the ground up in Portland, Oregon, protecting Fortune 500 clients and earning a reputation across the Pacific Northwest as solid as granite. My analytical mind and uncanny ability to anticipate problems have always been my greatest assets in business and in life, and I thought I had a good marriage with Ivy. She'd been by my side since I was 37, seemed to embrace the family business. And together we raised Michael, now 17, and Emily, 15, who I believed were the center of our world. For 8 long months, my father fought pancreatic cancer. OSU's doctors gave us a timeline, and we all braced for the end. Dad had treated Ivy like a daughter, and I could see how much his approval meant to her, which is why what happened at his funeral hit me like a freight train. The memorial at Powell Butte Cemetery was gray and hushed. The tech community inclined from San Francisco and Seattle there to pay respects, and I was still watching the casket lower when Ivy approached holding an envelope, her timing so cruel it felt staged. "Elias," she said with a steadiness that chilled me, "I need you to sign these." I opened and my blood ran cold. Divorce papers, presented while dirt still clung to my shoes from my father's grave. "Are you serious right now?" I asked, voice low, while strangers offered condolences around us. "The timing isn't ideal," she replied, "but according to your father's will, family assets transferred me as a surviving daughter-in-law. My attorney says it's ironclad." Before I had time to register the betrayal, Michael and Emily came up behind her, faces unfamiliar, cold, almost disgusted, and Michael announced loud enough for family friends to hear, "Dad, we've made our decision. We're changing our last name to Reed. Mom's new partner has offered us opportunities you never could." Emily nodded. "We want to live with Mom and Arthur. He understands us better than you ever did." Arthur Reed, my business partner of 7 years, the man I trusted with our most sensitive client data and financial systems, stood there as if rehearsed, and in that black suit among mourners, something in me shifted. Not hot, impulsive anger, but a colder, precise resolve. Running a cybersecurity firm tuned due to detect deception, Ivy's behavior had set off alarm bells since early spring. Small things that mounted. Her phone angled away while texting late nights at her marketing job that her assistant later denied, unexplained charges on our joint card, and dinners downtown when she claimed headaches. And Arthur, smooth and charming with a Stanford MBA, had been probing our finances in ways that exceeded his role, casually asking about our asset allocation and hinting at the value of my father's real estate. When IT flagged unusual access patterns in July, client files and financial records accessed at odd hours under Arthur's credentials, access times matching evenings when he should have been home, I started a quiet investigation. I hired Marcus Webb, a former FBI agent specializing in corporate espionage. Within 2 weeks, Marcus photographed Ivy and Arthur meeting repeatedly at the Heathman Hotel and uncovered their consultations with Victoria Steinberg, a probate attorney known for creative inheritance interpretations in blended family cases. It became clear this was not an affair but a takeover. They were plotting to twist legal language, manipulate the will's contingencies, and seize control of the family trust and my shares so I could be forced out of my own company. The cruelest tactic was a manipulation of Michael and Emily. Arthur played the indulgent modern father, flashing an American Express black card, promising a BMW for Michael and a Mercedes for Emily, painting scenes of private schools and European vacations while whispering that I was too conservative with money. He offered them immediate privilege in exchange for loyalty. I documented everything, every suspicious meeting, every financial irregularity, every conversation I could lawfully record, while quietly restructuring my personal accounts so Ivy couldn't touch them, and installing covert monitoring to flag unauthorized transfers. I consulted Patricia Morrison, a business attorney experienced in high-profile corporate fraud, and together we built a paper and digital trail that would survive any attempt at manipulation. I waited because exposing them while Dad was alive would have destroyed him. I let their arrogance grow, knowing the best hackers reveal themselves when they feel invincible. The breakthrough came 2 days after the funeral when our CFO, Janet Kim, found a $2.3 million wire authorization to an offshore firm using Arthur's digital signature. He confronted me in my office, composure gone, and stammered weak explanations about Caribbean consulting and a client in Phoenix. We froze transfers, alerted the bank, and Patricia filed preliminary injunctions and called the FBI. Forensic accountants uncovered fake consulting contracts, inflated invoices, phantom employees, more than 800,000 siphoned, and preserved backups of company phones revealed Ivy and Arthur's candid messages. Ivy boasting about playing a grieving daughter-in-law to win my father's trust. Arthur laughing about manipulating guilt and referring to our children as useful idiots for leverage during divorce proceedings. When Michael saw Arthur in handcuffs on the news and read the transcripts, his hero worship shattered. Emily, discovering the way they had spoken of her and her brother, moved from confusion to fierce, protective clarity. The probate court ruled Ivy's actions as financial elder abuse, disqualifying her from inheritance. Assets were frozen, the house reclaimed, and the family trust remained intact, exactly as my father had intended to protect the business and his grandchildren's future. 6 months later, in a federal courtroom, Judge Sarachin sentenced Arthur to 4 years and $850,000 restitution, and Ivy to 3 years and $400,000 in damages. The prosecutor called it one of the most callous elder abuse schemes she'd seen in 20 years, and as they were led away, I felt no triumph, only a sober recognition that justice had run its course. The company didn't collapse. It rebounded and grew. Clients rallied, new contract arrived, and our expertise in detecting insider threats became a selling point. I promoted Janet to COO, hired forensic accountants, refined internal protocols that became industry standards, and even found our approach featured in a Harvard Business Review case study. Michael chose computer science at Oregon State, determined to join the business, and Emily pursued business law and compliance, their experiences turning into purpose. Together we established a scholarship in my father's name supporting students of cybersecurity and ethics, because he always insisted that technical skill must be matched by character. Ivy later wrote from prison claiming repentance and requesting supervised visits. Michael and Emily, both now in college, were unanimous. Some bridges can't be rebuilt, Emily said, and Michael agreed. Focus on the future, we will protect together. Arthur sent excuses. I discarded them. Today, Grainger Digital Security employs over 200 people across Portland, Seattle, and San Francisco, and the Grainger name still stands for integrity, preparation, and methodical thinking, the legacy my father entrusted to me and that I am proud to pass on to Michael and Emily. Proof that betrayal can either destroy you or, if met with patience, preparation, and principle, strengthen everything you and your family have fought to build. Elias. Patricia told me during a confidential meeting in September that if they were planning what I suspected, they would have to commit several federal crimes to pull off. Wire fraud, embezzlement, possibly even racketeering if the scheme was being coordinated across state lines with business partners. But I couldn't act yet. My father was fading quickly, his health deteriorating with every passing week, and any public scandal would have crushed him emotionally in his final months. He loved Ivy deeply and without hesitation. He had walked her down the aisle at our wedding after her own father had passed away, and in his heart, he considered her the daughter he never had. That bond made waiting my only option. So I stayed silent, watching and preparing, all while pretending that nothing was wrong. Quietly, I restructured my personal finances, moving money into accounts Ivy couldn't touch. I documented every irregularity in Arthur's behavior, gathering screenshots, recordings, and detailed logs. I set up monitoring systems that would immediately flag any unauthorized attempt to move company funds. But the hardest part wasn't the technical work. It was the performance. Sitting at the dinner table, listening to my children laugh and talk about their future plans, knowing their minds had been poisoned against me, watching Ivy play the role of the caring, devoted wife while secretly conspiring to strip me of everything. It took every ounce of discipline not to show my hand too soon. In cybersecurity, patience is the most lethal weapon. The best hackers are exposed when they believe they are safe, and I knew Arthur and Ivy would eventually reveal themselves. All I had to do was wait. The funeral was on Thursday, a heavy day filled with grief and the weight of final goodbyes. By Monday morning, Arthur and Ivy had already stumbled into their first major mistake. I was in my office at 7 a.m., reviewing quarterly reports, when Janet Kim, our CFO, knocked on my door. Her face was pale and unsettled as she closed the door behind her. Elias, "We have a problem," she said, her voice low but urgent. She slid a document across my desk. Someone had initiated a wire transfer authorization over the weekend for $2.3 million from our operating account to an offshore consulting firm. "Show me," I said, though my stomach already tightened with certainty. The transfer bore Arthur's digital signature and was dated Saturday, just 2 days after my father's funeral. The recipient was listed as Pacific Strategic Consulting, LLC, registered in the Cayman Islands. I leaned back, my decision immediate. "Janet, freeze all external transfers right now and call the bank. Tell them we're doing an internal audit and need a 48-hour hold on any transactions over $50,000. She hesitated. "Should I notify Arthur about the freeze?" "Not yet," I said. "Let's see how he reacts when he discovers it himself." I didn't have to wait long. At 10:15 a.m., Arthur stormed into my office, his usually composed demeanor replaced with raw panic. "Elias, what the hell is going on with our banking systems?" he demanded, his voice raised. "I have a time-sensitive consulting contract that needs to be funded today, and the bank is giving me some nonsense about account freezes." I looked at him calmly. "I'm not sure what you mean, Arthur. What kind of consulting contract requires a $2.3 million transfer to the Cayman Islands on a weekend?" His face drained of color as the truth hit him. He stammered. "It's a legitimate business expense for the Henderson Industries account. We discussed expanding our Caribbean operations." I tilted my head. "Did we? Because I don't recall that conversation, and Henderson Industries is based in Phoenix. Why would they need Cayman Islands consulting services?" Arthur froze, then turned and walked out without another word. That afternoon, I called Patricia Morrison. "It's time to move," I told her. By Wednesday, she had filed preliminary injunctions freezing all joint assets, pending a forensic accounting investigation. More importantly, she had contacted the FBI's Financial Crimes Division in Portland. The beauty of financial fraud is that it always leaves a digital trail. And when you're married to someone who built a cybersecurity company, that trail is impossible to erase. The forensic accountants uncovered months of deception. Arthur and Ivy had siphoned more than $800,000 through fake consulting contracts, inflated invoices, and even phantom employees collecting paychecks. The amount pushed their crimes into clear federal felony territory. But the most damning evidence didn't come from the bank statements. It came from their own words. Our company-issued business phones automatically backed up every message, every email, and every call to secure servers. The transcripts were chilling. Ivy bragging about how convincingly she played the grieving daughter-in-law to earn my father's trust. Arthur mocking my father's guilt, boasting about how easy it was to manipulate him. They even joked about my children, dismissing Michael and Emily as useful idiots who could be leveraged emotionally during the divorce. When my children saw those transcripts, when they realized how callously their mother and Arthur had spoken about them, something shifted inside them. The blind loyalty Ivy had cultivated began to crack, and for the first time, they started to see the truth. Emily came to me crying one cold evening in November, her hands trembling as she clutched the edge of her sweater and her eyes red from tears. "Dad, I found Mom's laptop open and saw some of the police reports," she sobbed, her voice cracking. "Is it true what they're saying about her and Arthur stealing from the company?" My chest tightened, but I held her close, stroking her hair gently. "I'm afraid it is, sweetheart," I whispered, my heart breaking as I admitted aloud. "But that's not your fault. You were manipulated by people you trusted, and none of this should ever rest on your shoulders." Michael, on the other hand, was harder to reach. He had clung stubbornly to his admiration for Arthur, refusing to believe the stories. But when the FBI arrested Arthur right in our office, in front of half the staff, the illusion shattered. The sight of his so-called mentor being led away in handcuffs aired on the local news that night, and Michael's world caved in. The Portland Business Journal ran the story on its front page. Grainger Digital Security executives charged an $800,000 embezzlement scheme. The article detailed how a trusted business partner and the company founder's daughter-in-law had betrayed the family business while the patriarch was on his deathbed. I expected clients to run, but instead, they rallied They saw proof that our systems worked, that we had uncovered the criminals ourselves. Within weeks, new contracts arrived, boosting morale at a time we needed it most. Ivy's assets were frozen, including the house she had smugly assumed would be hers through inheritance games. Stripped of her illusions, she was forced to move in with her sister in Beaverton and take a job at a call center just to cover her legal defense. Arthur's downfall was just as brutal. His Stanford MBA credentials became meaningless after his conviction, and no respectable tech company would touch him. Last I heard, he was reduced to selling insurance in Spokane. The probate court ruled Ivy's actions amounted to financial elder abuse against my father, automatically disqualifying her from receiving any inheritance benefits. The family trust remained intact, exactly as my father had planned, protecting the company and securing his grandchildren's education. But perhaps the most striking moment of closure came 6 months later, when Ivy and Arthur were sentenced at the federal courthouse in Portland. Judge Sarah Chun presided with quiet authority, sentencing Arthur to 4 years in prison and ordering $850,000 in restitution. Ivy, her massive confidence long gone, received 3 years and was ordered to pay $400,000 in damages. The federal prosecutor called it one of the most callous cases of financial elder abuse she had seen in 2 decades. I sat in the gallery, watching them led away in shackles, and felt no surge of triumph, just a calm certainty that justice had run its natural course. The deepest change, though, came at home. Michael and Emily, whose faith in their mother had been shattered, slowly opened themselves to conversations we had never been able to have before. One night, while reviewing his college applications with me in my home office, Michael looked up and asked, "Dad, how did you stay so calm through all of this?" He had chosen to study computer science at Oregon State, determined to join the family business. "Son," I told him, "when someone betrays your trust, you have 2 choices. You can lash out in anger and risk mistakes, or you can stay patient, think strategically, and let their actions condemn them. People who lie and steal always reveal themselves in the end." Emily, now a senior in high school, had developed a fascination with business law. After watching the trial, she often asked me about corporate governance and legal ethics. One evening she asked softly, "Were you ever scared Mom might succeed?" I sighed. "Scared? No. Disappointed? Absolutely. But your grandfather taught me something vital. Always keep detailed records and never let anger dictate your decisions." Those lessons saved us. The company not only survived, but thrived. Our reputation for exposing insider fraud made us the go-to cybersecurity firm for businesses fearing internal threats. We secured contracts with Nike, Intel, and major banks across the Pacific Northwest. Revenue soared by 40% in a year following the scandal. I promoted Janet Kim to COO, hired forensic accountants, and implemented new protocols that later became industry standards. The Harvard Business Review even published a case study on our methodology. 3 years later, a letter arrived from Ivy in prison. She claimed she was reformed, attending Bible study, and asked to arrange supervised visits with the children. I handed the letter to Michael and Emily, both in college by then. Their response was swift. "Dad, some bridges can't be rebuilt," Emily said firmly. "She made her choices, and we've made ours." Michael agreed. "We have a family business to run. That's our future, not her past." I couldn't have been prouder of their strength. Arthur wrote too, but his letters were filled with excuses and blame. I tossed them aside after barely a paragraph. Some people never change. Today, Grainger Digital Security employs over 200 people with offices in Portland, Seattle, and San Francisco. Michael graduated summa cum laude from Oregon State and now heads our threat analysis division. Emily earned her business degree from the University of Oregon and runs our legal compliance department. Together, we created a scholarship fund in my father's name for students pursuing cybersecurity and business ethics, awarded to those with both technical skill and moral character. The balance he always said was essential for lasting success. Last month, we celebrated the company's 30th anniversary at the Portland Art Museum, surrounded by clients, employees, and friends honoring my father's legacy. As I stood at the podium, looking out at the people who trusted us with their most sensitive data, I realized the betrayal that began at my father's funeral had ultimately strengthened everything he built. Ivy and Arthur thought they could steal our legacy through deceit, but instead, they proved that true success comes from patience, preparation, and integrity. My father always said character isn't built in good times. It's revealed in the worst of times. The greatest betrayal of my life became the foundation for the strongest years of our company. Some would call it revenge, but to me, it was accountability. When you run a company built on trust, you learn that the truth always surfaces. You just have to wait. And now, when young entrepreneurs ask me for advice, I pass on my father's words. Keep meticulous records, trust but verify, and never let emotions cloud judgment. Those principles will guard you against betrayal and carry you toward enduring success. The Grainger name still means something in Portland: integrity, reliability, and the kind of steady vision that builds legacies. That's the inheritance I'm proud to pass on to Michael and Emily.